Welcome, everybody. 11:44 here on Mountain Time. Let's give everybody 1 minute to join, and we'll start rolling here. Hope everybody's having a great day. I'm enjoying these. I'm getting good feedback on these daily touch bases. Nobody's coming live, which is it's only been a week, so we'll see. But, the live part would allow people to give some comments, participate, ask questions, that sort of thing. I don't know. Keep giving me comment as to whether you want to see these daily or not. And here we are, 11:45 my time. So welcome, everybody, to Martinis with Scott, our little daily touch base, sorry. So this will be short today. As always, I try to keep these at 15 minutes maximum, preferably even a little less. So I saw Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. If you know him on LinkedIn this morning, he's a celebrity financial fellow, been on the Shark Tank, and he's a Torontonian, so we sort of know him well from my neck of the woods. But Kevin had a posting on LinkedIn this morning where he was wearing an AOC sweatshirt, a little bit tongue-in-cheek. He said he walked down the beach this morning. He's in Miami. He walked down the beach, and everybody loved his. Sorry, Siri's trying to talk to me. I'm going to turn her off here. Everybody loved his sweatshirt, and so he showed on this post that it was on the AOC site. He bought it for whatever, $65, $68, something like that. Then he thought, this is so terrific, because he tried to figure out the cost of getting this shirt, the sweatshirt, which would be, he figured about $6 plus 5 shipping, call it 11 would be your costs on this, and that's an 80% markup. An 80% margin. He says, which is amazing, an 80% margin. And his point that he was trying to make tongue-in-cheek is that there's a lot of capitalism in every socialist. And he said, AOC, call me. All I want is a 7% royalty. We can make a fortune on these. So what is Kevin talking about? Why is this so relevant? He's talking about contribution margin. He's talking about the price that you're selling the sweatshirt for, less your variable costs, which is buying the sweatshirt from someone made it somewhere, and someone made it somewhere else, probably overseas. And so, your direct materials and your shipping are your primary variable costs, and there's your margin. And so I was also listening after that, had in my earphones in, listening to a Clubhouse discussion with contractors. And they were basically discussing the same thing. They were talking about contractors who are bidding on jobs and not valuing their worth. So they're underbidding, and you need to value your worth, which at the end of the day is kind of the same thing. So I've talked to you on Martinis with Scott many times about, a formula for making more money, the way to think about making more money and being profitable in your business. And what I want you to focus on first is not top line revenue, which is what every coach on the internet tells you to do. I want you to first focus on margin. That was Kevin O'Leary's point. An 80% margin, that's outstanding. Focus on contribution margin. Second, on your overheads, right? Reduce your costs. Then third, on your top line, increasing your revenue. What is contribution margin, which is what we're talking about today? Well, Kevin just told you, it's your sales price minus variable costs. If you are a contractor, what are your variable costs? Well, they basically break down into materials and labor. There may be some other minor or lesser variable costs, or variable costs that are specific to the type of contracting you're doing. For example, you might want to think about warranty as a variable cost, or maybe your supplies are a material number, a significant number. Let's not mix up my language. Supplies are, but you don't need to overthink this. Pick your big ones. Pick your big ones that are variable, right? If you're not doing a job, you don't have to buy any materials. That's variable. If you're not doing a job, you may not have the hired direct labor to work on that job. And I know that there's also a fixed component direct labor, in the sense that you may not lay off your laborer if you don't have a job this week. So that becomes sort of turns that variable cost into a fixed cost. But again, don't overthink this. Just try to pick your big variable costs and focus on them. How much of it pricing, the revenue that I'm bringing in minus the variable costs in aggregate is my contribution margin. You can express that as a percentage, and that's your contribution margin percentage. How do you determine price? Well, there's two competing factors. What is the market? You can only charge so much to replace that roof. You can only charge so much to install a new kitchen because there's a market for that. And then the second competing factor is to reverse engineer as part of your business plan. What does reverse engineer mean? Well, I need to have, X profit as a percentage or as an absolute number. And then, so that's the bottom. That's where I want to end up, my net profit, right? And my overheads, my fixed costs, I got rent and insurance and office staff and marketing and all those sorts of things, which do not really change very much if my revenue goes up and down a little bit. So I got my profit plus my fixed costs, and that's sort of what I'm trying to hit. And then you look at your contribution margin that you need based on it, because you know how many hours there are in a year, right? You know how many hours, therefore you know how many jobs you can have and what your downtime is on average, right? And what your downtime is. And so you know how much your margin needs to exceed your fixed cost in dollars, and then you can turn that into a percentage number. You can reverse engineer, and then you can see if you have a problem vis-a-vis market, which is, the strategy part of this. And so let's talk about, these variable costs and how you do a markup. And one of the important, I want to talk about the really important reason to think about your contribution margin first and foremost. So let's say you've got a skilled laborer in whatever area, it doesn't matter, as a contractor. You're going to pay this person, say, $25 an hour. And you want to mark up or have a profit on that labor that you are reselling, right? And you may end up as a contractor targeting, say, a contribution margin of 50% at the end of the day. But depending on where you are in contracting, you're going to have a different mix of materials and labor. I have a contractor in my house right now as we speak. We were talking about this morning. And, he charges, little on materials, like 10 to 15%. But if he had a $25 an hour guy or gal, he'd be recharging at $45, which is, about a mathematically, 80 odd percent contribution margin on that $25 an hour labor. So in your head, if you do that, right, if you're not thinking contribution margin, if you're just thinking about, I got to charge this person out at $45 because I reverse engineered my profit and loss statement, and this is my model. This is just my model. I need a $45 an hour person. Well, what happens? What happens if a job comes along and that person, because of the market factor, right? Because you've got this competing issues here between market and which is reality, and your business plan. Well, what happens if you can only get $30 on this particular job rather than $45? And I talked to my contractor who was just here a minute ago. He says, well, we can't because we lose money. We lose money on that job. Well, no, you don't. No, you don't, because you lose more money if you have no other options, right? If you don't have other options and the only job you can take right now is going to recover $30 for that person who's costing you $25, you're still contributing, right? You're still contributing $5 per hour to your overheads and your profits. And if you did that all year long, you might lose. So you can see that, right? You're contributing to the bottom line, $5. Which may be not enough, right? It sucks. You want to charge the $45, but you can't because market in this particular time, maybe it's a bad time of year, whatever, right? And so you end up with this decision: should I take a job that's less than the $45, right? Less than my target contribution margin, but is still positively contributing. Okay, so and the competing factors of that, aside from the math, is you don't want to dilute your brand. Right? If you start taking jobs at $30 an hour versus the $45 an hour, or you're diluting the prestige of your brand, versus if you don't have a job for the gal or guy you're paying $25 an hour to, well, maybe that person's going to leave you because they're not getting paid because they're not doing any work, right? So those are the things that you need to evaluate. But if you don't, if you're thinking about that person as $45 an hour and not thinking about the contribution margin and the variable cost in that example being $25 an hour, you're going to end up with bad decisions. I see it all the time. I see manufacturing firms, for example, and they do what's called a fully loaded cost. I got all my variable costs, my direct materials, direct labor, direct overhead, that sort of stuff that's variable. And then they say, and I got my overheads, I'm going to make so many widgets a year, and therefore I got to have another, whatever, $10 per widget to cover my overheads. And then you come along and things are going great, and you start looking at your customer base and you see, look at this customer. This customer is below my profit. I'm losing money on this customer. It's not profitable because my cost, I'm selling to them for $100 and my all-in costs are $110. I got to stop selling to these people. I'll get rid of them. You see it all the time. What happens when they get rid of them? They lose the contribution, because although all-in costs might be 110, say their variable costs are 90, it was still contributing $10. Okay, and they get rid of that. Now what happens to the next customer? Well, now a smaller revenue base needs to pick up that same fixed cost. Your fixed cost per widget goes up, and now you can relook at your customers and you can find more people that you're theoretically losing money on. Right? Do you see the fallacy of that? You can just follow that logic right down to zero customers. I've seen it before. It's a flawed way of thinking. All right. How do you increase your margin? Your contribution margin. I mean, it's painfully obvious, right? You reduce your cost while maintaining the same price, or you increase your price while maintaining the same costs. I'm running out of time. What are some quick ways to increase your price while maintaining the same costs? Get more leads. If you have more options, you're not stuck with the one job that you can only charge $30 on. You can pick the ones with the highest contribution margin. Really important to fill that funnel, if for no other reason, that you can pick the higher contribution margin jobs. Add a service component. So you're not just now selling materials and selling labor, you're also selling maybe some service component to it, like a design, ongoing maintenance, depends on the type of contractor you are, but that's a way to add more value. Understand the market, understand the customer and what they need, the consumer behavior, right? Some buyers are completely price sensitive, and you're not going to have enough contribution margin. Others are not so price sensitive, and they're looking for quality or perceived quality, okay? And all customers are worried about risk. What is risk? Risk is you're halfway done your job, say a roof, you're halfway done the roof and you just leave, right? You go bankrupt, you leave, your laborers quit, whatever, and now the consumer's stuck with this, and that's a real issue as a buyer. And secondly, risk is professionalism. What if they do finish the roof, but they're up there smoking, screaming and yelling, talking vulgar, leaving shingling nails all over my driveway, so I get a flat tire every time I pick out, back out. That is a real story, by the way. Right? And so understand the market. Focus your brand on those risks, right? We're higher quality, we're professional, and deliver a service that's higher quality and professional. Testimonials that focus on higher quality and professional, they focus on the risk issues. Human contact, right? Be in touch with these potential customers, hang out with them, be friends, help them through their issues, because anybody buying your service is concerned about those things. Remember the profitability formula. You want to make more money, focus first on your contribution margin, second on your overheads, on your fixed costs, and third on increasing your top line and your revenue. Thank you for joining me for a daily touch base. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. Martinis with Scott on YouTube.